Hi, I'm Andrew Martin from the Philadelphia office, and I'm being tracked in the virtual world to introduce you to augmented reality and virtual reality and what these technologies can do for us as a company. AR and VR are a new set of bleeding-edge technologies referred to as mixed reality. With augmented reality, glasses are worn that superimpose images onto the real world. Now, these are the Microsoft Hololens glasses, and it does exactly that. This glass on the front here allows users to see the real world with virtual overlays. But with virtual reality, a user places a headset over their eyes and are seemingly transported to a different world. Virtual reality can be deeply immersive. For example, I'm standing here right now in this world that I made as you see it. So let's switch the camera over so you can see what I'm seeing. As you can see, I'm completely immersed in this world. I'm able to look around, even walk freely to different areas, interact with objects. Of course, it wouldn't be a good Pariveda world without a few dolphins. Anyway, if I didn't know any better, I might forget I'm actually just in my living room with an Oculus on. So now that we grasp the basic idea of what these technologies are, let's go to the FinFest stage to see how it can help push us into the future and how we can build an AR/VR capability at Pariveda. Thanks. So that was a neat little project that I made a few weekends ago to prepare me for being on stage. But while it was really fun to make, I think you see that a lot with augmented reality and virtual reality, this whole mixed reality space, kind of an onslaught of neat projects and nifty proof of concepts that don't particularly have any real-world applications. And this nifty stereotype, it begs the question from a lot of people, so how will this technology help in solving real problems at my client? But I think you'll be surprised at how far this space has developed in just the last few years, not just proof of concepts anymore. So it's going to be my job today to convince you that mixed reality is worth building a capability around. So I'm going to show you some numbers and projections, hopefully get you seeing some dollar signs. Then I'm going to show you a couple of applications that are in the wild right now that are solving serious business problems today. Now, these aren't another proof of concept thing, and I'm going to show a couple more of those because those are fun and exciting. No, these are real projects making real profit. Then finally, I want to show you what it actually looks like to build a capability around this space. It's surprisingly easy to do, and it makes my argument of worthiness a little bit easier. So first, we need to understand where we are now. So when considering the 5 stages of technology adoption, these technologies are still absolutely in the innovator stage. But as developers begin releasing mixed reality products aimed at businesses and not just consumers, that's starting to change. Okay, so what does the market look like? In the most recent data available, the mixed reality market looks like it's going to reach about $27 billion this year, which is an impressive 200% increase from last year. And if you look to future market predictions, it doesn't look like we're at any risk of slowing down. Now, in addition to the proliferation of mixed reality as a whole, the second fastest growing market inside of this space is healthcare, with 47% year-over-year growth. So the market is heating up fast, but it's heating up in the right areas. And device makers are taking note. So let's talk about the hardware itself. And the most popular VR hardware is the Oculus Rift by Facebook, and that's actually what I was using when I did my talk, my introduction video. Now, it's a neat consumer-oriented device, but recently Facebook has realized the potential of their devices in business. So soon they'll be releasing their very first business class version of the Oculus aimed towards B2B customers instead of retail customers. And for the Microsoft Hololens, that's the augmented reality glasses that we saw in the intro as well, they've already released a business class version that they tag with mixed reality is ready for business. So device makers are realizing these new applications and they're pivoting to meet a currently unmet need. And it's not just AR and VR devices that are becoming more sophisticated either. It's side products that help blur the line between the real world and the virtual world. So I know I said I'd show a couple more proof of concept things, and so I'm going to show you one more before we get into some really serious projects. I want you to take a look at these VR gloves.
Up until this point in the simulation, I'm just feeling things with my hand, but this glove has something called force feedback. If you look on the back of the fingers, there's this tape that can hold your fingers in one position. And when I finally picked up a rock, this is the moment where everything clicked.
So can I come over here and pick up a rock?
So that's cool, right? Let's talk about what mixed reality can do for our clients by looking at some products that are starting to utilize the technology's full potential to solve serious business problems. So recently, a team at UCLA developed a VR simulation. It's essentially a simulation of a rare tendon surgery. They tasked 24 doctors with performing the surgery in this immersive virtual world that they made. And now this gave doctors actual hands-on experience with the surgery, even if it was just virtual. They had a similar set of doctors that were just given traditional training booklets on the surgery and asked to study that way. And so what were the results? Those who went on to perform the live surgery after having used the simulated application significantly outperformed those that had not used the application. And the data shows that applications like this, they reduce medical mistakes, they lower the barrier of entry to many surgeries, and they save millions of training hours in the process. Now, the company that originally built this software for UCLA, OSO VR, they're a consulting firm that specializes in mixed reality applications for unusual or niche type of surgeries. And they've been winning multiple high-dollar contracts from multiple residencies throughout the United States. In fact, a superset of the application that we saw before is already in use by over 1,000 doctors a month at 20 university hospitals. So they're growing just as VR is becoming a serious business. Now, we actually have some ongoing VR talks with one of our own clients at my home office of Philadelphia. The client is currently dealing with some training inefficiencies in their distribution centers. So how the onboarding process works currently is a new person is hired, but they burn about 80 man-hours before becoming net productive. And the shadowing process of training takes away a fully productive resource for those 2 weeks as well. So they're currently in development of a virtual training environment that aims to reduce the overhead of the training, and it essentially takes the shadowing process away. And they've been experimenting with this process and have found that this case is a particularly good case for VR because this helps them quantify their level of investment in this technology. So because the results of this application can be quantified at a very granular level, it gives the firm great insight into the actual tangible cost savings for the firm. And with this and with a lot of other clients, it's all about helping them find those use cases, helping them build that argument, that business case for AR and VR, and helping them find the areas of their business that lend themselves particularly well to this new field. Now, we talked about a couple of serious use cases. Now I wanted to take a minute to talk about a project that was made by one of our own Finns to kind of drive the point home that we can all be part of building this capability. Now this is a Microsoft Hololens project that was built for a Finn's capstone project in college. So essentially, the user would program the HoloLens for facial recognition of familiar faces like family, classmates, whatever. And once running, the application would detect any user's face within, or any programmed face within the user's field of view. And here's where the AR part comes in. It would superimpose their name and maybe some other qualifying information above their head. And that's it. That's simple. Now, it's hard to realize it at first, but this is the perfect application, and it's the essence of what mixed reality is truly about. See, because on the surface, this is just a simplistic demo. This is a proof of concept, just like mine was at the beginning. But let's take a step back and examine this project from a different point of view. Now, we started looking at this project without a clearly defined target user, right? But let's imagine the 2 million United States sufferers of prosopagnosia, or face blindness. These people have trouble recognizing the faces of even their closest friends, and it can have a real impact on one's quality of life. Imagine them as the target user. Now this application quickly changes into one that helps those with this complex disease and more easily recognizing their friends and family. And maybe it's not prosopagnosia, right? Perhaps it's helping retail workers find items faster, or helping an assembly line worker, whatever the case might be. My point is, there's work to be done in even the ideation space. So take a step back like we did here and examine a client problem from a different point of view. And you might realize that there's more work to be done here than simply implementing actual software. Yes, as a company, we might find opportunities to develop some really amazing software directly for an Oculus or a Vive or a Hololens, but perhaps we can just help businesses find those areas of their operation that lend themselves really well to this field. So I think that we've seen that finding the business cases for AR and VR is easier than you might have thought originally. But the cool part is that VR is not particularly hard to develop either. From a developer perspective, there's not a lot of work to be done to build a capability around it. So I wanted to take the last couple of minutes and describe how I made the simulation at the beginning, the introduction video, and get you started on perhaps building your own project. So most projects are built in Unity. There are some higher level development tools, but Unity gives us a lot of power. So when creating our first project in Unity, you see that we have our little stage here, and we have 3 objects. We've got our sphere, we've got a light source, and we have a camera. Now the camera is us, it's our eyes. And the whole point of this virtual reality is to be immersive. I can look around, I can crouch, I can move around the world, and there's a lot of logic behind that. But luckily, Unity handles all of that for us. If we go to Build Settings and then Player Settings, we can see that we have the option to check VR. And that's going to rebuild this application into a VR environment that includes all of the logic for head tracking and body tracking. It's going to handle all of that for us, and we don't have to deal with those sort of things. So now, after doing that, we can see, after we put an Oculus on, we can look around. There's our little light source. And we can move around, move closer to the sphere. We can crouch down, like I did here. So all of those things are taken care of for us. Now, when we make a real application, we probably want something a little more complex than a white sphere. And if you're really good at designing, perhaps you could create some of your own CAD models to build a really interesting world. But if you're not artistically inclined, like me, Unity has a very interesting asset store, which allows you to purchase millions of different 3D assets and get commercial licenses for those. For example, the introduction, I bought a $5 low poly forest pack. Placed the trees, placed the land, placed the pond where I wanted it, and kind of created my own world, even though I didn't make any of the own art itself. So each of the objects that exist in the virtual world also have logic behind them. Each object has its own C# file running behind the scenes for any logic that you needed to do. And there's an overarching C# logic for the entire project so that you can make your projects rich and very interesting. So through this whole process, I think that we've learned a lot. We've learned that mixed reality is becoming this serious technology that companies are looking at to solve some of their serious problems. We've learned that there's already a lot of applications in the wild right now solving those serious problems. And most importantly, we've learned that VR is not that difficult to learn from a developer perspective. So I want you to take a minute and step back, like we said before, and examine a client problem from a different point of view. See where a client could potentially utilize this technology to solve some of their issues. Or maybe you have a really interesting idea for a mixed reality application. Go make it. Either way, let's build a capability of AR and VR at Pariveda, and let's be a thought leader in this space. Thank you.